Hey everyone, my name is Alexa and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing ACE International History Unit 4.1, and the big question for this chapter is, what was the implications of the warlord era that affected China from 1916 to 1928? So let's get started. Beginning, there were many issues facing China. The power of the Manchu dynasty was declining. Western powers gained control, defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War. Russo-Japanese War was fighting for Manchuria, which was a Chinese territory, and internal rebellions were also there, such as the Taiping Rebellion. Then the Empress Cixi opposed reform and used warlords to put down rebellions, which purged the government of all who supported modernization. Moving on to the Boxer Rebellion of 1898 to 1901. So this is where Chinese nationalists were angered by the foreigners gaining power and influence. And the Manchu government at first opposed, but was eventually supporting the rebellion and declared war against foreign powers, which was the Eighth Nation Alliance, consisting of Britain, Russia, Japan, France, the USA, Germany, Italy, and Austria-Hungary. And the alliance put down the rebellion and forced China to pay compensation for the damage to foreign-owned property. Now, China became westernized because traditional culture and customs were undermined, schools were offered Western-style education, industrialization began with coal mines, iron foundries, cotton factories, they were all established. Transportation and infrastructure was also developed. Then educated Chinese argued that if China was going to be modernized, then it needed to change its political systems to be changed. Okay, so now we have Sun Yat-sen. So Sun Yat-sen was a professional revolutionary, and he founded the Revived China Society, merged with other anti-government groups to form the Revolution Alliance. He toured the USA and Europe to raise funds for the Save China League, and he campaigned for revolution against the Manchu dynasty and wanted Western-style democracy. Then we have the Xianhe Revolution, where the Empress Cixi died, leaving her 3-year-old son Puyi as heir to the throne, and the 3-year-old doesn't really know how to run a country, so that led to all sorts of chaos. And the Xianhe Revolution began with soldiers who were angered about compensation being paid to foreigners for Boxer Rebellion. Provinces declared themselves as independent, and Yuan Shikai was asked to be prime minister, so he controlled the Beiyang army and the Imperial Chinese army, which was the Beiyang army. Now we have Yuan Shikai, and he was the warlord and general in the Chinese army. He was also the president of the Republic of China and forced to resign in 1915. Now, China was divided, so there were many warlords from all different parts, and they were taking over control, which led to many wars. So the KMT, which was the Kuomintang, formed, and it was a Chinese political party. It's also referred to as the Nationalist Party of China. And Sun Yat-sen was elected as the provisional president of the United Provinces of China and formally announced the establishment of the Republic of China. China was now divided as the Manchu government, led by Yuan Shikai, was still in power in Peking. Now, the civil war was avoided by negotiations between Sun Yat-sen and Yuan Shikai, and Yuan would arrange for the emperor's abdication. China was unified with Yuan as president. Now, in March 1912, Puyi was abdicated by Yuan Shikai, and China was now a republic with no tradition of constitutional government. China became a military dictatorship in 1912 elections when the KMT won the popular vote and planned to appoint Song Qiaozhen as prime minister. And Yuan established a military dictatorship, which means when someone is in total control over a country's affairs, is made possible by personal control over the armed forces. And Yuan's military dictatorship banned the KMT and dismissed its members from democracy. So democracy was no longer possible. Now we have the weaknesses of Yuan's government. So in 1914, Yuan dismissed parliament and took complete control over the military, economy, foreign policy, and civil laws. So many provinces opposed Yuan's government, and Yuan's popularity was damaged when he was forced to accept Japan's 21 demands, which gave Japan control over Chinese affairs. This started the May 4th movement that I'll get to in a few minutes. Now, Yuan became the emperor in December of 1915. However, he resigned and died a short time later. Now, before we get to the Northern Expedition, let's go to the May 4th movement. And this was when many people became unhappy with the signing of the 21 demands. So in May 1919, students protested in Peking and demanded government action and boycotted Japanese goods. So the protest led to strike and refusal of signing the treaty giving Japan Shantung, the Shantung province. Then the May 4th movement promoted Chinese nationalism and modern ideas, and traditional Confucian values like Western democracy, freedom, science concepts were all a big part. And the movement caused the emergence of working classes and industrial action, like strikes, and this was influenced by the Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party ideologies. Now, going to the Northern Expedition. The Northern Expedition was when the KMT wanted to remove the warlords from China, so they started with the south of China over here, and they moved towards the north. So the goals of this was to achieve nationalism, which was Sun Yat-sen's first goal. They stopped warlords from getting power, and the KMT wanted to achieve its aim of reunifying China under a single government, aka nationalism. So mainly involved was Chiang Kai, Wang Changwai, which is another leader of the KMT, but with views aligning with the CCP, the KMT, the CCP, the NRA, and warlords. Then the key events of the Northern Expedition include preparations, which was done 4 years before the war took place, and it required detailed planning. The KMT defeated 2 warlord armies and also gained control over all land in China, south of the Yangtze River. The Soviet military and political advisors helped strengthen the KMT's military. The KMT leadership divided between Chiang Kai-shek, which supported traditional ideals, and Wang Chingwei, who supported the CCP, but also Sun's views. The warlord armies were extremely unprepared and disorganized and weren't expecting this, so it led to their defeat. Now, it was successful because it had 4 years of planning and preparations. By 1926, Chiang felt ready to put the plans in action and began a military advance northwards through China, which was the Northern Expedition. Then Russia also helped strengthen the KMT, and NRA was equipped with modern weapons from the USSR, Germany, and Japan. The warlord armies were extremely unorganized and disorganized, leading to their defeat. Now, the impact of the Northern Expedition, there's good impacts, but also bad impacts. So first, Chiang removed the power of warlords within China, and Chiang became political and military leader of China, and Sun's first principle of nationalism was achieved. But now the KMT only took control over central and southern China, not northern, so warlords still remained in that area. And warlords weren't really destroyed, they were just defeated, so they came back and reformed their armies, which led to the KMT going to war against the warlords, again in a battle called the Central Plains War of 1930. Japan was also concerned that the KMT would have an adverse effect on Japanese interests in China, so they went into a battle called the Xi'an Incident, where thousands of KMT soldiers and civilians were killed. So that is all for Unit 4.1, and stay tuned for Unit 4.2 coming soon.